Looking at making a floating shelf some style? Stick around and I'll show you how I made these floating shelves with the mountain range for under $15. Hey, Nick from Old Fashioned Nights, and today I'm going to build a couple of floating shelves. Except these aren't ordinary floating shelves, these ones have mountain ranges on it. I was recently asked by some family members if I could build some floating shelves for them. They sent me a screenshot of a design they liked, let me know some rough dimensions, and left it up to me to make. The design was simple enough, basically just 3 pieces of wood attached together with one of the pieces having cutouts that look like a mountain range. The main thing I have to think about is how do I want to attach the pieces together? I'll for sure be using wood glue, but what about the fasteners? If I'm going to be using fasteners, I want to make sure that they're not visible from the front for aesthetics. I don't want my edge grain showing on the front. I want the face grain of the mountain range to show. I also want to use another joinery method besides a butt joint for the pieces to give the joint some additional strength. So now I got some design objectives. I'm going to go ahead and design it up in SketchUp, and to save you the boring stuff, here it is.
Here is the shelf designed in SketchUp. Its overall length is 23 3/4 inches long. I mentioned that I didn't want to do butt joints to join the pieces together. So you can see on this back piece, I have it 4 1/4 inches long. And then I have a groove cut about 3/8 of an inch off the bottom. And then on the mountain ranges, I have a rabbet cut that is 3/8 inches into the material. So that should be enough area to hold the wood, keep good connection. So now let's get stuff cut out and let's get it made.
I picked myself up a couple of 4-foot 1x6s, so let's start cutting. Now that we got our pieces cut to their respective lengths, I'm going to go ahead and cut the mountain range design next. For the mountain range, I want to use the same design for both pieces. To make things easier, I'm going to place the design on one piece and use that design to cut both pieces. That way, the design is the same for both pieces and I save on cut time. But the risk of doing it that way is if I screw up, I ruin 2 pieces instead of 1. So just be careful. To secure the 2 pieces together, I'm going to place painter's tape on one side of each of the 2 pieces. I'm then going to take one piece and place a few drops of CA glue spaced a few inches apart onto the painter's tape. On the other piece, I'll spray the painter's tape with a glue accelerator. Then, making sure they're aligned, I'll place both pieces together and apply pressure for about 10 seconds and it'll be held together. The painter's tape with the CA glue is essentially making double-sided tape to hold the pieces together. I've used this method numerous times before, and it always does a great job of holding pieces together temporarily. With the pieces secured together, I'm going to go ahead and put painter's tape on only one of the faces. I'll place my design of the mountain range on this, so I don't have any pencil marks on the wood. To make sure I don't cut too far down and expose the edge grain of the shelf piece, I'm going to place a line 7/8 of an inch from the bottom. This will be my lower limit for the mountain range. I'm now going to take my speed square and start tracing some mountain ranges. With the mountain ranges traced out, time to cut them on the bandsaw. The mountain ranges are cut. Now it's time to make my groove cut on the back piece and rabbet cut on the mountain range. Now there are a couple ways I could do this. I could use my table saw with a flat curved blade. This method would involve me setting the depth of the cut and adjusting my fence in 1/8 inch increments to achieve my width. Or I could use my router table with a 3/4 inch straight bit. This method has my width locked in with a 3/4 inch straight bit. Then I would adjust my depth by 1/8 inch increments until I got what I needed. I ended up choosing the router table method as I thought this would be a little faster, but as I'll show you, I ran into some issues. I first ended up doing my groove cut on the back piece first. I set the fence 3/8 of an inch away from the edge of the straight bit and did 1/8 inch passes on the pieces until I got the depth I needed. As you can see, there's a groove in my groove. What I think probably happened is my fence wasn't fully tightened to the table, and on the first pass, as I applied force against it, it moved. Even with this, I can still place my shelf into this back piece. It's a nice snug fit, and I can add a little bit of wood glue or wood filler to fix it. Now, I need to cut a rabbet into my mountain piece, and this is where the second issue arose. Nothing is wrong with a mountain range cut. It came out exactly the way I wanted it. What happened was, I don't know what I was thinking, but I made the cut way more dangerous than I needed to. I placed the face of the mountain range against my fence, and as you can see, my hands were dangerously close to the bit. I don't know why I did it this way. In hindsight, I should have just placed the face on the table with the edge against the fence. I set the cut up the night before when I was tired and probably wasn't thinking things through. I wanted to highlight this because in your workshop, there's many ways to make the same cut. You just have to identify which one is the safest and go with that one. So with all the router drama out of the way, I'm going to do some light sanding to smooth out any sharp edges, then it's time to glue the pieces up. To give the back piece some additional support, I'm going to install these 1.5" screws into it. Alright, now it's time to glue the mountain range onto the shelf. So what I'm going to do is place glue on this rabbet joint here and then set it on there like so. And to get it to hold, I thought about using clamps, but I was worried about the mountain range potentially bending, getting at a weird angle when drying. So I decided to throw a few 3/4 inch brads into the front to hold it in place. I know I said I didn't want any hardware showing, so what I'll do is after the glue is dried, I'll go ahead and put wood filler over those brads, and they should hide them up just fine. Everything looks good, it's held in place. So what I'm going to do is clean up that glue that got squeezed out, let it dry, and we'll come back to it and see how it looks. I used my wood filler to patch up any sort of imperfections, sanded it, now it's time to stain it and paint it. All right, we are done. I think it came out looking real nice. So again, thanks for watching my content. If you enjoy this, please hit like and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow. And I'll see you in the next one. Thanks. Bye.